Okay, welcome back. This is another video on my 8mm Horus Heresy Apocalypse collection. What we have in front of me here is the Iron Hands. This is the final of the armies that I have fully painted for the Apocalypse game. This is the last one. I'm showing it off. I didn't want to show it off with the rest of them. I know it's been a few months since I've showed off these armies, but this is the last one. And the reason why it's last is because it's A, my favorite, and B, there was a couple of units that I hadn't fully painted that I wanted to add to it to make it complete. Now, my love for the Iron Hands comes from, oddly enough, the Fulgrim novel from the Horus Heresy series. It's weird that a novel centered around the Emperor's Children Legion would make you fall in love with a opposing legion, but I found, and I was inspired by Ferrus Manus and the betrayal of Ferrus Manus and the Iron Hands by the Emperor's Children. Now, spoiler alert, one of the scenes that really had me feeling for the Iron Hands was the scene, not the battle on Isstvan 5 where Ferrus loses his head, but a scene earlier in the book where Fulgrim is going to talk to Ferrus to see if he can convince him to join Horus, and Ferrus gets really angry and they get into a fight. Ferrus gets knocked unconscious, and his bodyguard in the room next door all get simultaneously decapitated by the Phoenix Terminators of Fulgrim's bodyguard. And when Ferrus wakes up, he's so enraged by this that he puts his blinders on and he goes insane, essentially, and he's so angry that this is happening that all he wants to do is hunt down the traitors and knock their skulls around. So further on in the book, when he's on the planet of Isstvan 5 and Vulcan and who's the other guy, Korax, are trying to persuade him to retreat from the battle, he's just not having any of it. He's going right on ahead. And the idea of him stopping when he's so close to Fulgrim, like, he can see what's happening around him. He can see that the end is coming, that they've been betrayed, and he just gets angrier and angrier. And I just love that about him. I just love that, like, strong bullheadedness. And oddly enough, I see a lot of that in my son. He's very stubborn and bullheaded. So this is my favorite legion. Enough about the recap of the book, but it's just explaining why I really liked the Fulgrim, the Iron Hands from the Fulgrim novel. I think the whole scene on Isstvan 5 where the Iron Hands and Raven Guard and Salamanders are fighting, and you can see the betrayal. That whole scene, that whole section of the book is by far one of the best pieces of 40k fiction, 30k fiction I've ever read. And I'm inspired to do both the Emperor's Children and the Iron Hands. Anyway, this was an extremely easy army to paint. Normally black and white are one of the worst things to paint. Now, in the 40k version of Iron Hands, they're black with a lot of white accents. Their bolters are white, I see a lot of time. And I don't like that. I think that's too Raven Guardy for me. I honestly don't like white with black that often, unless it's like maybe the Templars. So the Raven Guard and the Iron Hands are two of my least favorite color schemes. But this one was particularly easy because in 30k, mainly the Iron Hands are all black with silver, with dirty silver, dirty metallics, very grungy, and so these are easy to paint. Essentially, it was just a base coat of black primer down, and then they were dry brushed with very, very, very slight oily metal color. I think it's Iron Hands silver, maybe. It's the silver that's more on the gray, oily looking side. So I just very lightly dry brushed them like that. Did the highlights, or didn't do any highlights, right? I just did the basing and picked out like the gun barrels and the tracks and a bit of that stuff. And then on some of the units, I did a little bit of trim, where I did the silver trim on the bolters and whatnot. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble, but essentially it was extremely easy to paint, and I could paint a lot of them really quickly. So this army is a little bit bigger than most of the others. It's definitely bigger than the Emperor's Children, but that was because the Emperor's Children, the purple and white and gold and silver scheme of the Emperor's Children, just took a lot longer to paint. So I didn't get as many of them done, but the black I just flew through. So that's why there's so many. Now I did go to the extra step of trying to put in the Iron Hand symbol on most of the units. Because I saved so much time painting the actual unit itself, I could devote a little bit of time to, if you can see here, like the Iron Hand on the white Iron Hand icon on the units. Anyway, let's stop talking, and I'll get down and I'll show you them in more detail. I would like to say before I do that, though, that this army and most of the armies that I paint, I kind of make a theme about them. Because in the Horus Heresy, a lot of the units look exactly the same. It's very vanilla. Most of the units of the legions have specialty units. Like, for instance, the Ultramarines, the most vanilla of all the units, they have the Isazarian Guard, those weird-looking Roman-looking things. The Warbearers have the Gal Vorback, Ashen Circle. The Iron Hands have two main special units for infantry, which would be the Morlocks and the Gorgons. So I have both of those units here present, but mainly the Iron Hands are a tank, mechanized driven army. So I have lots of heavy tanks, and lots of essentially armor. So just gonna pause here, gonna be a bad cut while I go to handheld, and we'll get down and look at them a little bit closer. Okay, it might get a little bit shaky from here, but I thought I would start off with the Primark. Now, the Primark doesn't live for very long in the Horus Heresy, so I just painted him for laughs, and I found a model online. I printed him off, and this is the Ferris model. Now, he's not quite to scale. I think he should be a tad smaller than this, but it's okay. As a centerpiece model, it looks all right. And it was a pain in the butt to print off because of all these, like, the little tools on the back of his backpack. But I think he came out okay. I tried to give him silver arms, and I tried to blend them into his skin. I don't know if that shows up very well. But there's Ferris, and he is supported by his Gorgons. You know, very bad looking white hands there, but essentially he's got his Gorgons. He's got over here, he's got his Medusans with the boarding shield. They've got two Mastodons for them to travel in. Now I'm missing the top of this guy here, but it just fell off a minute ago. I'll put him back on in a second. A little bit of dust on there as well. Well, not dust, the basing sand. So there's two Mastodons, and they're going to travel, they're going to have Ferris with his Terminators on there. Latching onto the back are going to be some of the Dreadnoughts. I got a collection. Now in their little, where I store them, I guess the basing sand has gotten a little loose there, but anyway, then he's got 7... What are these things? Sakaran battle tanks, just standard autocannons. Got some... They're not Medusans. I don't know exactly what these things are called. Artillery pieces anyway. I tried to do the hand and the cog at the side as best I could. In the back here we have 3 units of tacticals. 1, 2, and then 3. So there's 3 of those. I did 4 Leviathans. He's got the dual storm cannon, Gravflux, Snippy Claw, Gravflux, Snippy Claw. And I just assumed, hey, they're Iron Hands will have lots of Dreadnoughts and Leviathans. Then we got one here. We got 4 Land Raiders, just very basic. All the armies have these Land Raiders. All this stuff is 3D printed, by the way, by myself. And I recently upgraded to a Saturn printer, so I've got a much bigger printer now and I can print off a lot more. And my dreams of doing the Mechanicum next are coming true because I'm starting to print off lots of Mechanicum units. And they'll be on eventually. Now here's the cat investigating what's happening. He doesn't like it here because we have the table set up for a game that me and my wife are going to play later using the Iron Hands. So he's lost a lot of his lying down area and he's taken his collar off. So he's a sneak attack cat at the moment. Anyway, back to this. Here are the Super Heavies. Now, for Super Heavies, when it comes to Iron Hands, you have your pick of the litter. You can basically put whatever Super Heavy you want. So I decided to go with Imperial Guard looking Super Heavies with the Storm Sword, Storm Blades, and this is Storm Sword, Shadow Sword, Storm Blade, and Storm Sword. I can't remember exactly the names. We got a Legion Glaive, which I did the cogs as best I could. And then we have a Falchion, which is one of my favorite vehicles in all of 40k. I do actually have a Falchion from Forge World still in its box, and it's terrifying me. The big one, the 28mm one, to paint is terrifying me, so I haven't done it yet. And that brings me to another point, is that because this is my favorite army, in 30k in the 28mm scale, I also have an Iron Hands army. It's just not painted, because black on a small scale with a silver dry brush looks okay, but to mimic this exact same thing on a larger scale looks kind of rough. So until I can find out a technique of painting black where it looks oily and metallic-y, they're all in their boxes waiting for that day. And hopefully Games Workshop will re-release Horus Heresy, which I think they're doing. And then I'll get my act together and finish off my true scale, no, not true scale, 28mm Horus Heresy Iron Hands. Anyway, I'm starting to yap a lot here. We got 10 bases of Terminators and Cataphracti. We got some Legion support. We got 2 Cerberuses and 2 Typhons. Very, very nasty. We got 2 Spartans. I don't know why, I just had them extra, so I used them. And then we have 6 Predators. So you've got Predators, Spartans, Super Heavy Typhons, Cerberuses, Super Heavy everything. You got Land Raiders, you got Sicarans, Artillery, Mastodons, Dreadnoughts, and a boatload of Terminators and troops. And I think for this army here, I'm not really going to have them, they're allied pretty closely with the Mechanicus, but I think we're going to play a game tonight with these units here, and I think I'm not going to have any Titans on their side, but I will have Titans on the opposing side, and we'll see how these Super Heavies and big guns go about taking down a couple of Titans. But that's it. That is the last the last army of my initial 6 armies for the 8mm Horus Heresy Epic Apocalypse games that I run. I'm just going to pause the video here and I'm going to show you just the Mechanicus that I printed off, just to give you an idea of what's coming up next. When it comes to armies, I'm going to start again this year and do a few more armies. I'm going to do a Mechanicum army for sure. I'm going to do a World Leaders army, and I think I'll do an Ultramarines army, just so that we can have some Calth action. But yeah, just give me 1 second and I'll show you the Mechanicum, and then we'll just sign off. Okay, bad cut. But here's my little box of 3D printed stuff. I got some rhinos and whatnot packed away in here. But in here I do have the beginning of my Mechanicum. There's a Castellax. And I got some Thalax that I've started to print off. But yeah, I got some Dreadnoughts to go still. So still have lots of stuff to paint in this box here. But yeah, we're starting on the Mechanicum, and I'm pretty well on my way through there. But I keep everything in these little boxes. I've got several of them stacked all over the place. And yeah, we'll be back with another video shortly. And I'm looking forward to the game tonight. It's going to be the Iron Hands versus the Word Bearers, and it'll be up on YouTube eventually if we can make if we can make it work and seem at least mildly interesting. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon, and bye for now.